What's up, everybody? It's Micah. Back at you again, Tavern Geek. Listen up. Here's my X-Men 97 episode 10 predictions. So, we all know where we were left at the very end of the last episode. So what I think is going on and what's going to happen is that there's going to be several reactions that will cause catastrophic things that will happen immediately and not so immediately. So, first, let's jump to the very big one. Wolverine's adamantium is ripped from his body by Magneto. And the outcome, I believe, will be several different things between several different characters that are involved in this situation. Number one, Magneto's rage will be on display for all of those mutants that are there to see, especially the two who decided to follow him. I think it's pretty much given that Roberto feels bad and he's already back on the right track, so I don't think we have to worry about him. But Rogue's another story. Rogue is going to see that, and she's going to see how horribly Magneto turned on her friend, who saved her life countless of times. And she's going to feel betrayed. Not only that, she also feels betrayed anyway because Gambit's not there. And then she's going to feel even more betrayed because Xavier is going to flip his lid. And a lot of us comic book people, we know what's about to happen. Xavier is going to shut down the mind of Magneto completely. I mean, he's going to turn old Magneto into a magnet, or like into a vegetable, basically. And this is going to leave Rogue pissed off. I'll be surprised she doesn't attack the professor, and the X-Men intervene, and they're like, hey, he had to do this, look what he did to Logan, blah, 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 Logan's dead. They all think Wolverine's dead, and he literally does die in the comics, but his healing factor brings him back. So we'll see just kind of how that plays out. Rogue will definitely leave the team. It's going to happen. She's going to be gone. She's been through so much crap, during this series that, I don't blame her. Aside of that, we're going to flip over to what's going on with Bastion. So Bastion, at the very end of the last episode, got his hands on the neuralizer that Beast invented when he faced off against the Phoenix, and he and Forge have modified it to adapt the Bastion so they could shut down the Sentinels. I think that Bastion is going to use the neuralizer to neuralize all of the mutants. I think that, they joked around, Beast and Forge joked around about not having neutralizer technology, and of course Storm was like, nah, that's not cool. But from comic book past and like history, Beast doesn't tend to play very nicely or listen to people when it comes to things that he thinks will work out for the better. And Forge has done the same thing. Now, Beast may do this. I think Forge is at a place where he's not going to use neutralizer technology because he has problems with that. I think Beast might have it set on there, or Bastion figures out that there are some basics to that, and he's going to augment it. I think there will be a struggle. I think we're going to see a big epic move. Like we're going to see Morph kind of come on the counterattack in like a really cool way, like ways he's going to stretch his powers. But honestly, I think that Bastion is going to analyze this, and he's going to figure out a way he can neutralize mutants on a global scale, using his own technology. And with Xavier shutting down Magneto, the power is going to cut back on. So, with all that being said, what stops Bastion? Do we leave on the season at the end of the season like that, kind of. So how do we stop Bastion? This is what happens. Being overwhelmed by Cable's telekinetic abilities, which they're putting his telekinetic abilities on par with Nate Gray, which is interesting. If those of you don't know, Nate Gray's an alternate version of Cable from the Age of Apocalypse storyline, and this dude was like crazy powerful. He was Cable without the techno-organic virus. Like, he was ridiculously powerful. But what I think is going to happen is Jean is going to go Phoenix. Whether it's a smidgen of the Phoenix, whether she just, morphs and uses the Phoenix to put Cable down for a minute and stop Bastion, it's going to happen. Jean is going to stop Bastion. And when she interferes with Bastion, Bastion is going to use the neutralizer. He's going to shut down, House of M style, a certain number of mutants, okay? He's going to shut their powers off. And when he does that, it's also going to backfire on him and shut him down as well, and shut down all of the Prime Sentinels. So it's going to be, Bastion's going to see it as almost like a neutral type thing. He's going to kind of be a neutral villain in this situation, because I think that Bastion is not acting on his own will. I think the government is controlling him. I think President Kelly is behind it. Why would Val Cooper be there? Why would she know about everything? But I think that Bastion wants to turn on the government and stop them as well, and just kind of find peace. Because during the EMP, he says he finds some sort of peace because it's quiet. He doesn't hear machines. So maybe in this case, he shuts himself down because he's just tired of it. He's tired of everything, tired of being the rebirth of Nimrod and all this crazy stuff. But I think that's going to happen. So we're going to get the shutdown of all the Sentinels. They'll return to human form after the shutdown. And then, but we're also going to lose like a certain number of mutants. Well, that will be the cliffhanger at the end. And I think at the very end of the episode, after all of this happens, and they all are there at the end. Also, just this thought just came across my mind. Maybe Bishop shows up and blasts Cable. He was part of the gold team, so that would be kind of cool if they threw him in there. Maybe he shows up to stop Cable because he knows what's going to happen, and he's able to stop Sinister and save Cable. Maybe that's his role. Or there could be something else going on with Bishop that we don't know. So I think, so that's just this tidbit there. Remember that Bishop is out there and anything can happen with his character. He was barely on the show and he was announced as a main character. So, like, he's got to show back up at the end, or at least be a focal point for the next season. So, with all that being said, all these mutants have lost their powers. Well, a lot of mutants wanted their powers. Like, maybe there's a certain number of them that wanted to keep their powers, this and that, and there's just this worldwide panic now, and these mutants are now human, and they've got to figure out how to, live their life, but they're still hated upon because they were mutants, so it's even worse. So they want their powers back. So what happens is enter the Messiah to this situation, and that is Apocalypse. And Xavier is kind of like and this will be season 2. So like Xavier is there, he shut down Magneto's mind, but let's say that Xavier experienced a kind of like a magnetic backlash from the electromagnetic waves from his mind shutting down Magneto's, and Xavier also is kind of depowered to a certain extent, or maybe the thing that Bastion does depowers Xavier, because I think Xavier was depowered in the comics when Scarlet Witch did it. Excuse me. So Xavier becomes depowered, but he's not right. Like, he's kind of gone crazy, and he's talking to himself in his sleep, and the X-Men are kind of watching over him, and they're like, okay, it's his house. We'll make sure he's cool. Like, Beast will study him and stuff like that. And Beast is trying to help mutants that have lost their powers and yada, 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 yada. So, and then Apocalypse, he appears. And you see the beginning of this. You see the very beginning of season 2. Hold on, let's switch back real quick. The end of season 1 shows Wolverine. At the very end, Wolverine wakes up in the mansion after all this stuff has taken place. Xavier's kind of crazy. It's just Wolverine and like Jubilee, and like Rogue is there, but she's not there, and she's like getting ready to leave, and she's all over the place, and she's kind of happy that Logan's alive. And you know, you have this remnant of X-Men that are alive, and Wolverine walks out, and he's like, you know, Beast starts talking about how remarkable his healing factor is, and yada, 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 yada. And Wolverine goes into the danger room, and it's like straight out the comics. He does a couple, like, you know, training exercises and does a flip. And then one of the exercises, you know, is one where he would normally use his claws, and he pops the bone claws out. And everybody freaks out. And they're like, holy crap, he's got bone claws, dude. And Wolverine's like, this hurts. And like, that's the end of season 1. Season 2 begins, like I said before, with the team trying to figure stuff up and pick up. And Rogue is gone. You know, it's kind of a hodgepodge team. And Apocalypse appears to the world, and he says, I can give you back your powers. And he demonstrates this by showing everybody that one of his horsemen, and it's Gambit. And Gambit looks normal, everything's cool, and he's talking about how great Apocalypse is on TV. But then when Gambit walks away, he can kind of like transform, or he's still using Mystique to do this. Or Mystique could be one of the horsemen too. She's just using her powers. And you see Gambit in his like war form when he was a horseman of Apocalypse. Apocalypse restores his powers and brings him back to life. And you're like, holy crap, that's crazy. And like, you see the X-Men in there, and everybody's like, man, this is nuts or whatever. And Wolverine just has this like sense he knows Rogue is going to go there. So Wolverine goes by himself on his mission to try to help Rogue. And Rogue wants to talk with Apocalypse and wants to join his cause or whatever. You know, maybe Rogue loses her powers. Maybe she wants to go have her powers back, even though she, you know, never wanted them in the first place. There's so many ways this could go, but I think with Apocalypse being this kind of like Messiah type thing, you know, and you know, there's nobody really left, and like all these mutants are showing up because they want their powers back, and Gambit's an example. And then the X-Men show up, and like, you know, because Rogue goes to talk to Apocalypse, and she like recruits maybe, or she gets defeated by Apocalypse, and Wolverine tries to help her, but Wolverine gets stopped by Apocalypse as well. Well, you cut, and like the X-Men show up to fight Apocalypse, and then Rogue comes with like Archangel because he has passed with Apocalypse, and you know, and Nightcrawler or whatnot, and they're getting ready to fight, and then his horsemen walk out, and it's Gambit, it's Madeline Pryor. Now the last one, a lot of people would like to see Rogue as that last horseman, and maybe so, maybe we can do that. Maybe Archangel feels something, and he's like, we need to go find Apocalypse and stop him, and Rogue and Wolverine are both taken and turned into horsemen. And then it's Rogue and Wolverine, and this is the end of season 2. Like, they fight Gambit and Rogue and Wolverine and Madeline Pryor, and I think that would be so cool. And you know, so anyway, I've been thinking about some stuff. It's kind of a nice little break from life, but you know, tell me what you guys think. What out there? Where do you want to see this series go? There's so many places it can go right now. Obviously, I didn't talk about Onslaught. I do think Onslaught's coming. I think that it's evident. I don't think Onslaught's going to be the villain of season 2. I think they're going to kind of have what you would call a filler season with Apocalypse doing the stuff and restoring Gambit and Wolverine back to their normal forms and things like that. But I think that Onslaught will be the big bad in season 3, and you're going to see like a huge crossover. We're going to get our 90s Peter Parker Spider-Man crossing over. We'll get Captain America and the Hulk. We have to have the Hulk if it's Onslaught. You know, we're going to get them all. Fantastic Four. It's going to be a huge crossover event, and the world is going to learn to trust the X-Men at the end, and we'll see what happens. You know, well, at least the heroes will. I don't know about the world, but let's see what happens with everything. Anyway, this has been random thoughts on what's going to come from X-Men 97, and I hope you guys have a good one, and peace.